I know the Tide Mill, which is a project that has two phases. I guess we're talking about that building by CBS. And there's also a project in Baton in front of the city council on their academy using the waterway there for rowing. Now, I give it, I'll probably have to mention my wife's name. I won't mention her name, but my wife and I were down by CBS the other day, and she looked at the Tide Mill, and she's probably going to aggravate all the people that put the Tide Mill. She says, why didn't they tear that building down? Because it looks tough. And I know there's a lot of people I know that support that. I've never really been to any of the meetings and stuff, but what is the status of that place?
First of all, just by way of history, there was a Friends of the Tide Mill that owned the site for a number of years.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get any resources together to do anything.
Yeah.
So it was turned over to the city, I think in late '06 or '07, the city accepted it. Now what we did was we had an inquiry by Thayer Academy to put a rowing facility down there to allow their rowing program to go out to Town River. Now we're looking at it in three phases. You mentioned two phases. There's actually three phases to it. There's the rowing facility, the recreation component.
Yeah.
By Thayer putting that in, spending $250,000, then would allow us, Quincy High, North Quincy High, and Quincy Recreation, to have kayaking, canoeing, and our own rowing program for our high schools that we otherwise couldn't do.
Yeah.
So I viewed it as a partnership. We get an outside entity to build it, pay for it, and we'll be able to use it.
Yeah.
The other two pieces are the Tide Mill, and we're working right now with community preservation monies. We're about to begin some emergency repairs to sustain it. So no further damage happens. I'm not so sure there's one piece of lumber in that facility based on folks I've talked to that having to do with the original Tide Mill.
There's a new door on it, though.
Yeah. You know my point.
Yeah.
The door was thrown up because to try to make the area secure. But, you know, when I have a central to build, when we have school roofs, I'm going to be going to the council's money for it to fix because they're leaking. When we have an old city hall that needs a lot of work, you know, the Tide Mill site, I'm not going to spend $1 of taxpayers' money on it. It just doesn't make sense to me. If we can get grants, programs through other sources to do something to stabilize it and perhaps enhance it or bring it back to its look, fine. But I'm not going to spend $1 of taxpayers' money.
That was the next day after I moved down, because I go to CBS almost every day. There was about 15 people that with suits and ties on looking at it and stuff. And that's what I call when I wrote these notes up. I wrote down, you know, non-essential projects that I would question. There's basically two of them. One is that Tide Mill, and the other one is a thing that was in the paper the other day that Dan Ramondi's promoting, and he does a good job promoting and stuff, is the Factor Park thing. You know, and if we're in a situation where there might be layoffs of teachers and stuff, and there's any city money there, I'd rather see that city money spent on keeping teachers and firemen and policemen working than, you know, fixing a rock or a stone.
Well, again, we're not spending any city money on the Tide Mill site.
Okay.
The third component, by the way, was a piece for the fishermen,
Yeah.
the lobstermen and stuff. They could come in and drop off and pick up materials. Faxon Park, we did a master plan as a city so that over the next 10 years, as we identify monies, like from the Community Preservation Act, because it's a historic park, then we'll do that. But right now, there is no city money.
But that money there is just put aside. That money can't be taken out and used for police, fire, or education.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So that's designated money.
It's designated for a specific purpose. It has to be used that way.
I can understand that. Now, there was a lot of controversy, probably still is a lot of controversy on the Thayer thing, because in the city council, there was a wide range of city councils that questioned. I think the basic thing they questioned was giving them like perpetual use of that forever. And I think their point was it might have been Palmucci and Cutbro and a couple other guys that wanted to have like something with like the golf course type of thing. You know, they get it for 50 years or 15 years or whatever. How is that being looked at?
It's being looked at. At this point, I may pull the plug on the whole project and go back to the city council with a request to sell the site.
Yeah.
You know, if there's no support for a public-private partnership like that, which doesn't cost us any money, we as a city are not going to be able to afford to do anything down there.
No.
So perhaps we should put it back out to bid, either for rent or for sale, to see what others from the outside would like to do with it.
Is Thayer against like getting it with like a 50-year lease or a 25-year?
Oh, I don't know that they're against it. And let's put that in perspective, because all that does is allow them to come down in the spring and the fall at a certain time of day after school to have a shot at that time, that 15-minute span to get their boats in the water. That's all it is. It's not ownership. It's not any kind, it's much like we do with permitting with our youth groups. I mean, if you're Quincy Youth Baseball, for 30 years, you've had first shot at the fields because you've been around for 30 years. There's other baseball programs, but they're behind you on permit requests because they were there first.
Yeah.
So it's not much different than that. I think we've made a lot more out of this than what needs to be.
Where do they do it now?
With all due respect,
where do
they use the harbor down in Hingham.
Hingham Harbor,
Yeah.
okay. Now that area, because I know a lot of people get on, my grandkids just get on there fishing. I know my neighbors get on there fishing. And isn't that also tied in with this Broad Meadows project that's supposed to be starting too?
No, it has nothing to do with that. The Broad Meadows project is on the other side of the town river.
Also on the other side,
Yeah,
okay.
it really has nothing to do with that.
Because that would be, I mean, I know people that put boats in down there.
Right.
Is that like are them areas designated for certain use? Could you
Well,
put anything?
there's that stretch along there is called the designated port area.
Okay.
Just like the shipyard and so forth. So there's certain type of uses that are allowed and not allowed under a designated port area. How they drew the maps, I'm not so sure, because
Okay.
I don't know that there was ever the draft down that end of Town River to do anything as far as deep
So
water
would
goes.
would that fit, if it, so I don't think the city council's far apart from you on dealing with this. They just want, they think, to make sure the city's interests are protected. And if the use fit in with whatever it's supposed to use for, I don't see why they'd be against it.
The way I read the agreement is that at any time Thayer could walk away,
Yeah.
and if the city wasn't happy with things, they could tell Thayer
Okay.
it's all over. So
All right.
I think we're making a lot more out of it.
All right, that's
But
good.
I think it was a good project to go with. And
I know this is the question.